Hello and welcome back to the game room. You know what I love? Video games. You know what I love talking about? Games. And it seems like a lot of people out there these days who cover games seem to hate them. Or at least the people who play them. Well, that's not me, and that's not the 1,836 of you beautiful people checking out this video here today. We are 64 away from 1900. We are right before Thanksgiving, and I am thankful for all of you checking out this video. And today's episode, I wanted to talk about some games that, even though I usually prefer gameplay over story, I want to talk about some games that were really heavily no gameplay. So very minimalist gameplay or almost no gameplay. So if that sounds interesting to you, let's check it out.
There's a lot of games out there, some of which you've never even heard of. That's where I come in. My name's Luke. I've been playing games since the age of 2, and I have no life.
This is my game room.
Alright, so starting this off, one of the most interesting games that I've played in recent memory that had virtually no gameplay, you're just walking around looking at stuff, was the Return of the Oberdan. So I think this was on more things than just the Switch. It is a super interesting game that is loosely based on some mysteries of yesteryear about ships that showed up and no one was aboard it, nothing, like no clue, kind of like the Croatoan people, or the Roanoke rather. And so in this game, you are an insurance person who is tasked with going to this ship and figuring out what the hell happened. And through it, you have this stopwatch that allows you to essentially find these death scenes and then reenact, or essentially make a tableau of what happened at the time of that character's death, and then search around it. And if you remember back in the day when you were in school, I don't know if you guys had these projects, but I had a lot of projects that were sort of mysteries where you would get all these different clues, and then you would have to, using the clues, justify, like, okay, Sam was at the library with the rake, and this person was there, and if this was true, then this was true. And this is how this game plays out, like a very high level version of this, and it's super cool because as you start making assumptions, once you get something correct, or one of the possibilities are correct, it will then cement it as the way that character died, or the way that thing happened. And for the most part, you do have to be pretty damn accurate about it, though they will give you some leeway with saying pierced versus stabbed versus expired, things of that nature. And it's a very, very fun game. And it's one of those things where you really, sometimes you'll think, how on earth am I going to figure out who all these different passengers are and who these different people are? But the more you start relying on, kind of like, oh, this person was with this person, or you start trusting yourself, you will find that you start uncovering, and it's a very fun experience that you don't really see much in video games. So that's why Return of the Oberdan, even though there's virtually no gameplay, is one of my most fond experiences I've had in quite some time in recent memory. Alright, now another one that is a lot of fun that I played as an Xbox download back when Games with Gold was a fairly new thing. It is not Portal, it is the Stanley Parable. And yes, this is Indie Box. If anyone knows what that is, that's when they would make physical editions of PC games. I've never picked up the actual physical copy of it on console, and I've also never opened this, but I have downloaded the key. And Indie Box in general is kind of a disaster that takes up so much room in my collection, but the game itself is fun. It's very much like a sidestep of Portal as far as it's puzzle based. You can get into a room and you can start manipulating matter, and then suddenly you turn a couch into a giant bridge, or all these other things. I have not played it as much as I would like to, so I'm not really an authority on the game, but it is very, very interesting, and it's not gone away. It's one of those things where it's funny, certain games will come out and just stick, and even to this day, people still talk about it, so it's a very cool game, the Stanley Parable. Check it out. And in line with me talking about Portal, another game that has very little gameplay, Portal 2. Now, Portal 1 would fall into this as well, but I've only played Portal 2. There's a fun multiplayer mode in this as well that I've never done. But the main storyline, I mean, really, You're putting an orange portal and a blue portal, and then using that to get through puzzles. And I suppose in this video you could talk about a lot of different puzzle games, but I'm really focusing on just ones like this that have simplistic controls, simplistic gameplay. There's not really, I mean, this is one of the ones that's more cheating on that, but Portal 2 is a super fun game, very fun story, very just one of those things that makes you think outside the box, and when you try something and it works, it's very gratifying. I mean, that's one of the things that I love about, I call it video game logic, where you look at a scenario and you think, well, I might be able to solve it this way, and then you find out that does solve it. It's very, very gratifying and a super fun experience, and I would highly recommend checking out Portal 2. You can play it on anything. I know it got re-released for the Switch recently. Now, here's a game that I first discovered on the Sega channel, and I could not for the life of me remember if this was a game I played in school or where I came across it until a few years ago when I just looked up, because the fun thing about it is you could stamp like Toe Jam and Earl and other characters on it, and then you could make them almost move in not an animatronic way, but essentially it was like a more interactive and fun, in my opinion, version of Mario Paint, and that was Sega Club's Wacky Worlds. Now, I played this on Sega Channel. It is a very simplistic game. Essentially, you get a screen, you stamp things on it, and then you can make them animate, and that's really all you can do in it. But for me, I enjoyed it. It's a stupid fun time. You can get all the little animations going on the screen at once is enjoyable enough. And as the closest thing to Mario Paint on the Genesis, it's fun. And I think it even came with a mouse, because I know the box is huge. But yeah, it's stupid cheap as well, and definitely well worth checking out. Now, I've talked about this game before, so we won't touch on it too much, but kind of all the Telltale games. So we're talking about Walking Dead Season 1. Phenomenal story, virtually no gameplay. So, a lot of fun. The Season 2 and Season 3, I've played Season 2, Season 3 I haven't, but if you really just want to experience a solid open and closed story for the most part, Season 1... playing as Lee in the Clementine storyline, one of the best stories as far as taking a television property or a movie property, or just an existing property and adapting it into a game. Very, very masterfully done. And in tandem with that, the first Wolf Among Us game, I really, really enjoyed playing, much more so than some of the other Telltale stuff, because I did not have an existing background with it, and I also found the subject material more interesting than something like the Borderlands, as well as seeing my wife rip off the crooked man's head. Chef's kiss. Okay, so jumping into some more interactive movie-type games, we're going to have one that came out fairly recently that is like an ongoing slasher movie that I really liked from, I think it came out a couple years ago, but I played it last year, and that was The Quarry. So The Quarry, even this cover reminds me of Friday the 13th Part 2, and you really aren't sure until you are sure where it's going, and it's just fun. It does lend itself to repeated playthroughs, but I find it very difficult to go through these type of games more than once. I didn't quite have the lasting appeal of the first game for me, which was Until Dawn, which was another game that plays virtually identical. It's made by the same people. They also had another series called The Mind of Medine, or whatever it's called. Until Dawn, in my opinion, is the best of all of them, because they really swerve what you think is happening, versus The Quarry, you pretty much know what the main type villain is. And they also get a little bit too many famous actors, although there's famous actors in Until Dawn as well. But that's where I almost wish they didn't do that. I like it more when we're not seeing Lance Reddick or the dude from Prison Break. But hey, I digress. Both of these games play almost identically and are well worth checking out. I would say Until Dawn gets the slight edge over The Quarry, but The Quarry is just as good, and either one of them is super fun. And like I said, they lend themselves to multiple playthroughs, but I find it, with a lot of these games, it's hard to play through it more than once for myself. That's just how I feel about that. Alright, so here's one that takes the simplistic gameplay and cranks it down to zero, and that is Captain Toad Treasure Tracker. You can play it on the Switch, play it on the Wii U. It's just a game where you walk and switch perspective, and it has a 2-player option on the Switch, which is fun. It is just not much to it. Like, there's really not much to it. It's more gameplay intensive than some of these other things, but just a nice, fun. Put it in. You can play with, like, all these games. I mean, not all these games. Like, you can play with someone who isn't really versed with gaming. That's what makes them nice. But Captain Toad is a good, fun time for just going through. Like, my wife and I played that, and that's a good option there for that. Now, here we're going to talk about a twofer. So everyone's heard of the masterful Journey. Journey, when it came out, was really one of the first type of these walking simulators, as far as ones that gave you no context, no story, beautiful visuals, great music, and an immersive experience that was not really repeated anywhere else. And since then, it really hasn't been repeated again, in my opinion. I know the same developers, I think they made Abzu or Journey, a Song of the Deep or something like that. It's just not the same as Journey that was just so fresh and so cool. But really, you couldn't do anything other than walk. And then on this same collection, there's another game called Flower, which Flower is even more of a game where you literally are just flying. And when it came out, it was more impressive to show off the PS3's visual fidelity, but it's also a very soothing and immersive and interesting game, and probably something that would be good if you were a little, if you're partaking of Flower or things of that nature, I would imagine. And it's just a chill, super chill game, not much to it, impossible to die, impossible to do it. I mean, I think you can fail a scenario if you're not doing it within the same timer, but just fun. Journey and Flower are nice hand and glove type experiences for that if you're looking for something very relaxing and very cool. Now here's one, another double pack, but I call it the original walking simulator because I can't think of anything that was earlier than Limbo. And yes, this is Inside in Limbo. Inside, I hear, is very similar to Limbo as far as that, but Limbo, you literally just move forward, can push a block, jump, and that's about it. There's not much else you can do in this game. It's got striking visuals. There is a storyline in it that I think is a little but as far as the gameplay goes, really not that much. Super basic, can get through it. It's kind of each. There's like 5 sections if I remember, and it's pretty short too. That's that's kind of necessary for these games that don't have much gameplay. Is you need to be able to get through it pretty quickly. But Limbo's a solid option, and Inside I hear is better. And if you pick up the double pack, that's a great way to check out both games. All right, and then we're getting down to the last few. So a series that I really wanted to check out isn't really a series as much as it's the developer, kind of in line with how Until Dawn has its style. You have Quantic Dreams with their style, and the first game was Heavy Rain. Now, I don't know about you guys, but this was really the first PS3 exclusive, even more so than Uncharted, that really started making waves for me back in the late 2000s as far as hearing about it. So I heard Uncharted was great, but Uncharted really looked like a next step evolution of Tomb Raider. But Heavy Rain had the most realistic visuals I'd ever seen. And it kind of was like, is this almost like a Saw type game? You're controlling 4 different characters. There's an investigation. What's going on? And then you could have people die. You could have different scenarios. And it actually made it seem like going through and playing through the game different with different pathways was recommended, and almost had me. Like when I played it the first time, it was very immersive, very cool. I almost went through and played it again, but it's also one of those things where you realize, at least if you start doing some research, that okay, these games do a great job of making you think that there's multiple pathways, when in reality there's not. So you'll get through it and you think, wow, I got here and I got here. I wonder what happened if I did the opposite. And like, oh no, I still would have got here. But they do a good job of convincing you that wouldn't happen. So that's why with a lot of these, it's one playthrough and you're done. But Heavy Rain still sticks with me to this day. It's got more of a diversity of gameplay than some of the other ones on this video. But one that I know some people hate it or love it. I'm definitely in the love it camp. It'd be interesting what I would think of it now, having played so many other games that were kind of in this vein, but super recommend this one. And it's not nearly as predictable as you think it's going to be. And then looking at the next game from that developer, which would be Beyond Two Souls, I don't have that one, but I did pick up Detroit Become Human. And Jen and I played this one and had a great time with it. It's, you know, as far as lasting appeal goes, I probably would say Heavy Rain is an overall better game, much more so because that one feels more approachable. It's based more so in reality versus this is in an alternate reality where you have android people. And instead of playing as 4 different people, you have 3 different. So you're playing as the cop, the service worker, and then the kind of the android that goes rogue. It's an interesting story overall. No gameplay whatsoever, but very similar to Heavy Rain. So if you know, and that's kind of how like the Until Dawn has its style, the Walking Dead games have its style, Quantic Dreams has its style, and not that I have a demonstration, or I don't have a physical one of this, but another game that is very, very good with almost no gameplay is a game called Firewatch. Now this does have a physical release that I should have picked up. I didn't, and now it's super expensive, but it is a very, very good immersive game where it has you doing almost nothing. I find I'm not a huge fan of these type of walking simulators, but this one is handled very cleverly. You're isolated in the woods during a summer. You can talk to your partner through a radio, and then weird things start happening that eventually coalesce with obviously the ending of the game, which we won't get into. But if you're looking for a really fun one that has decent graphics that do hold up, it's kind of a hybrid cell shade, so it's not super realistic looking, but it suits the tone of the game very well, and it takes you in a direction that you don't really see coming. Firewatch is one I highly recommend. And another one that has very interesting gameplay, but once you get past that initial mind meld, then that's all you do, and that's Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons. So the thing that makes this game so interesting is that you control 2 characters simultaneously. You move one with your left hand, one with your right hand. Essentially, that's all it really does is twin stick. And they really do a lot with it. But that's it. That's all you do. And you go through all these different various areas and see this really crazy world. And it's got a very bittersweet ending as well. One that you don't really see coming and is kind of depressing, but hey, that tends to be a lot of these type of games where they make you think is they don't like happy endings. But yeah, Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons, another one I very much recommend checking out. And I think that is it. That's all you guys got for this week. Let me know about some games you guys like that have very minimalist gameplay or almost no gameplay. Because there's definitely plenty other ones that I don't have experience with like What Remains of Edith Finch and things of that nature. I don't tend to like that many of them, but these are definitely ones I do recommend. So as someone who is a heavy gameplay first-person story secondary, I just wanted to throw out some of these examples where, hey, some of these are fun to check out. Even some of them that have no story as well, like the Wacky Worlds on Genesis. It's fun to check out. All right, so that's what you get for this week, guys. As a reminder, I release a new video every Tuesday. If you want to check out the link at the bottom, you can check out Into the AM, get some t-shirts. Thank you guys so much for supporting the channel. Like I said, we are 300 watch hours away from me being able to do stuff like super chats and things of that nature, which I couldn't imagine getting there, and it's all thanks to you guys, and I really, really appreciate it. I appreciate all the likes, the shares, the comments, the support. It just means everything. You guys are the best. So, hey, it's been so nice getting a hold of you. Take care.